This lobby isn't for wanderers or wannabes. We have an image to maintain. The words cut through the polished silence of the Auralis Hotel lobby in downtown Denver like a cold slap. Travis Cole, the front desk manager, stood with arms folded behind the marble counter. He wasn't whispering. He wasn't embarrassed. He said it like it was printed in the hotel's handbook, loud enough for every guest in the high-ceiling lobby to hear. Across from him stood a black woman in a white blouse, beige trousers, and soft-soled shoes. She carried no designer purse, wore no flashy jewelry. Her hair was tied back in a neat low bun. Her posture was calm, too calm, as if she had walked into storms like this before. Guests paused mid-conversation. A few turned their heads. An older woman in a floral scarf gently reached for the hand of the little girl sitting next to her. The girl leaned closer and whispered, "Grandma, why is he being mean to her?" The woman didn't answer right away. She just sighed. Selene Carter didn't flinch. She stepped forward, her voice even. "I have a reservation, executive penthouse. Name's Carter." Travis blinked, then smirked. "Are you sure you booked the right place, Miss Carter?" Before she could respond, a younger clerk named Lana Briggs leaned in. Her smile was tight. "We don't seem to have you in our system. Maybe you're thinking of a different hotel." Selene didn't argue. She calmly slid her ID and sleek black card across the desk. Lana picked it up like it might stain her fingers. From across the room, a man lifted his phone discreetly. The red record light flickered on. "Before we go any further, tell me, where are you watching from today? Drop your city or state in the comments below, because what happens next will make you question what dignity really looks like." Lana Briggs tapped a few keys on her terminal, her nails clicking against the polished surface like a ticking clock. She didn't look up. "Nothing under Carter," she announced with the kind of practiced neutrality that was more weapon than courtesy. Selene stood silently, her eyes steady on the woman behind the desk. She didn't argue. She didn't plead. She waited. Travis Cole took a step closer, scanning Selene up and down. "Do you have a confirmation number, Miss Carter? Or perhaps a printed itinerary?" His tone dripped with skepticism, not curiosity. Before Selene could respond, he turned to the younger clerk, Zach Reynolds. "Zach, go ahead and initiate the secondary verification protocol. We might be dealing with a system mismatch or something else." Zach hesitated, glancing briefly at the screen in front of him. For a flicker of a second, he saw it. S. Carter, Executive Penthouse Suite. Owner access, override level. But then Travis stepped behind him, and the flicker died. Zach swallowed hard and minimized the window. "Of course, sir," Zach replied, and began running the check as ordered, pretending not to have seen anything. Lana leaned forward again, lowering her voice just enough to sound intimate, but loud enough for those nearby to hear. "Look, we've had issues before with walk-ins using fake corporate cards. It happens more than you think. People find a card, try to bluff their way in. You'd be surprised how common it is." Selene didn't flinch. She reached into her neatly folded handbag and produced a slim leather folder. Inside was a printed copy of her reservation confirmation, time-stamped and complete. She laid it on the counter without a word. Lana didn't even touch it. "We'll need to verify this through management," Lana said curtly. "Could take a while." She gestured vaguely toward a back office, making no motion to move. Selene's voice was calm, measured. "That's fine. I'll wait." Across the room, the man who had quietly started recording angled his phone slightly to catch a wider shot. A soft murmur rippled through the lobby, subtle but growing. One man near the fireplace lowered his newspaper and frowned. A young couple waiting by the elevator exchanged glances. The little girl, Chloe, tugged on her grandmother's sleeve. "Why won't they help her, Grandma? She gave them her papers and everything." Her grandmother squeezed her hand gently but didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on the scene unfolding. Behind the front desk, Travis exhaled heavily and folded his arms again. "Miss Carter," he said, louder this time, "do you understand that presenting false information or impersonating a high-tier guest is grounds for immediate removal from the premises?" Still, Selene said nothing. She simply nodded toward the confirmation on the counter, her eyes never leaving his. Zach cleared his throat. "I think I saw," he began, but Travis cut him off sharply. "You'll speak when I ask you to speak, Reynolds." Lucia Torres, the concierge standing just outside the reception area, had been watching everything unfold. Her hands were clasped tightly in front of her, knuckles pale. She took one step forward, then stopped herself, her eyes flicking nervously between Selene and her coworkers. Lana picked up the black card with a pair of tweezers from the drawer behind her station. Not because of any contamination protocol, but as if she couldn't bear to touch it directly. She held it up to the light, inspecting it like a fake dollar bill. "I'm calling security," she muttered, pressing a small button under the counter. "Just in case." Selene raised an eyebrow. Her tone remained composed. "Security? For a confirmed reservation?" Lana shrugged. "Policy. For unusual cases." The word unusual seemed to echo, hanging in the air longer than it should have. Travis gave a tight smile, the kind that didn't reach his eyes. "We have an obligation to protect the integrity of our brand, Miss Carter. We hope you understand." The man with the phone whispered to his partner, "She hasn't even raised her voice." His partner whispered back, "Because she doesn't need to. They're proving her point for her." The air in the lobby thickened. Guests began paying more attention. One woman quietly tapped her screen to start recording, just in case. A business traveler pulled out his phone and opened his notes app. Observers were no longer passive, and yet behind the counter, the staff continued as if none of it mattered. As if the woman in front of them wasn't calm, composed, and exactly where she belonged. Lucia's voice broke the tension, soft but firm. I saw her name in the reservation list this morning." Travis turned to her like a whip. "That's not your place, Torres." But the sentence had already done its damage. Guests heard it. Phones turned. Chloe leaned forward, eyes wide. Selene remained still, her tone clear but quiet. "I'm not here for conflict. I'm here for the room I booked, the one your system already acknowledged." Travis narrowed his eyes. "Not anymore. Until this is cleared up, your access is suspended." And just like that, the card disappeared behind the counter, tucked into a metal drawer with a cold finality. The moment the drawer clicked shut, Selene Carter knew it wasn't about procedure. It never was. She had seen this act before, wearing different uniforms, spoken in different tones, always dressed up as policy but powered by prejudice. She didn't move. She simply placed her phone flat on the counter, camera facing up, screen dark, but recording. Across the marble floor, guests had grown still. Some were sitting upright now, no longer pretending to scroll their phones. The air was thick, not with confusion, but with something more dangerous. Recognition. A new sound entered the room. The soft ping of an elevator door opening, followed by the heavy footsteps of two security guards approaching from the far end of the lobby. They didn't rush, but their presence was deliberate. One of them, an older man with salt and pepper hair and a stiff walk, exchanged a glance with Travis before nodding. His name tag read M. Kwan. Travis pointed to Selene without hesitation. "Escort this guest out of the lobby. Her reservation's been flagged. Possible fraud." Selene's voice did not rise. "That's not true." The younger guard looked unsure. Kwan, however, had paused. He studied her for a moment longer than expected. His eyes narrowed, not in suspicion, but memory. Lucia Torres stepped forward again, this time from behind the concierge desk, her voice more assertive. "Sir, I really think there's been a mistake. I saw the override code myself. S. Carter, the owner-level clearance." Travis's eyes turned sharp. "Lucia, you're not management." "I know," she said, "but that doesn't make me blind." Travis ignored her. He turned back to the guards. "Remove her." That was when Chloe, still seated beside her grandmother, stood up on the velvet bench. Her small voice rose just enough to cut the silence. "Why are they doing this? She didn't do anything wrong." Heads turned. Guests who had been silently filming now raised their phones higher. The room, once comfortably indifferent, had started to choose sides. Selene finally looked up at Kwan. "Do you remember me?" He hesitated. Then slowly he nodded. "I was here," she said, 25 years ago. I was in college and I got turned away at the same desk. It wasn't you, but you saw it happen. You didn't say anything then." Kwan's jaw clenched. "I remember. I'm asking you now, are you going to stay silent again?" That question didn't just hit Kwan. It drifted across the lobby, settling into the chests of the guests who were watching, recording, and wondering if they'd be brave enough to speak. Lana, sensing the shift, tried to regain control. She stepped forward briskly, blazer stiff, eyes hard. "This is getting out of hand. You were asked to leave. You're escalating this unnecessarily." Selene didn't respond. Instead, she reached for her phone and tapped once. A small chime played, muted, unobtrusive, but in an office 4 blocks away, her executive assistant Camille saw the signal flash on her dashboard. Camille's voice came through the line immediately, routed through Selene's earpiece. "Verilink is live. Athena Protocol is standing by." Selene's next words were soft, nearly whispered. "Start the recording log. Tag this moment." Behind the desk, Lana turned toward Zach. "Get the card. Lock it in the main vault." Zach, who had remained quiet throughout the exchange, moved reluctantly toward the side wall. He opened a metal drawer and reached for a brushed steel case. He held it with exaggerated care, then placed Selene's black card inside as if sealing away something dangerous. With a loud click, the vault closed. "There," Lana said with finality. "Now it's company property until verified." A guest gasped audibly. A woman near the front of the line said, "That's theft." Selene still hadn't moved from her spot. Her posture was firm, not tense. Her silence was not surrender. It was strategy. Jerome Daniels, the businessman who had just walked into the lobby and noticed the growing tension, approached cautiously. His eyes widened as he recognized her. "Selene?" he said, uncertain. She turned slightly. "Hello, Jerome." He looked between her and the staff. "What's going on here?" Travis jumped in. This guest claimed a fraudulent reservation and attempted to access a high-tier suite using suspicious credentials. Jerome blinked. "You're serious?" Then he looked at Selene, at her expression, her calm, her stillness. He'd seen that look before. Years ago, in a boardroom, when Selene had turned down a buyout offer with that same unshakable grace. "Oh my God," he murmured. "You don't know who she is, do you?" Lana crossed her arms. "We know enough." Jerome stepped back, stunned. "You really don't." Selene's gaze swept the lobby. Phones were everywhere now. Not one was lowered. Even Chloe had taken out her school-issued tablet and started filming. The moment had turned. Selene leaned forward slightly and spoke only 4 words. Not a threat, not a plea, but a promise. "You'll regret this day." Jerome Daniels' voice was still hanging in the air when a sharp new one sliced through the tension. "She didn't do anything wrong. She gave you everything you asked for. Why are you treating her like a criminal?" It came from a young woman standing halfway down the lobby, phone raised, voice trembling, with a mix of disbelief and fury. Her name, as it would soon be known across social media, was Maya Jennings, a conference attendee from Atlanta who had just checked in 20 minutes prior. She wasn't famous, she wasn't loud, but her voice cracked something open in the room. More guests turned. The quiet tension that had curled itself around the lobby began to loosen, unraveling into open concern. Near the main sitting area, a woman in a green coat whispered, "This doesn't feel right." A man next to her nodded, raising his phone and muttering, "We're going to capture all of this." Lucia Torres took another step forward. Her voice, though not loud, carried authority. "I saw her name in the reservation logs this morning. Selene Carter. Owner access, level 3 override." Her eyes shifted toward Zach, who looked visibly torn. "You saw it too, didn't you?" Zach didn't answer. He looked down at his shoes, jaw clenched. Travis Cole didn't hesitate. "Lucia, if you speak again, consider this your final shift. This is a management issue." Lucia didn't move. "No, this is a decency issue." A few guests clapped once, hesitant but genuine. The spark was there. Chloe, still standing beside her grandmother, raised her little voice again. "They're bullying her," she said clearly. "That's what this is." Travis turned sharply toward the child, then thought better of it. His jaw tightened, and he turned back to Selene. "This isn't about race," he snapped. "It's about following protocol." Selene looked at him calmly, then at the growing ring of faces watching from all sides. "Then why is it," she asked evenly, "that your protocol never seems to apply when a different kind of guest walks through that door?" A hush fell again. It was no longer just a confrontation. It was a courtroom, and the witnesses were many. The older security guard, Marcus Kwan, had not moved. His posture was stiff, but his eyes were not cold. He looked at Selene for a long moment, then said quietly, "I've worked here for almost 2 decades, and I've seen this pattern before." Travis spun toward him. "Marcus, not now." But Marcus didn't stop. "Every time a black woman walks in alone, dressed like she doesn't own half the block, we act like she's here to steal the silverware." I stayed quiet too long. The effect was electric. Phones pivoted toward Marcus now. Whispers turned into words. Selene stayed motionless, her hands resting lightly on the counter. She didn't need to fan the flames. The fire had caught. At that moment, Jerome stepped closer and pointed at the vault. "Is her card still locked away?" Zach nodded reluctantly. "You need to return it," Jerome said. "Immediately." But Travis crossed his arms. "That's not your call." Jerome's voice dropped a register. "You're right. It's hers." He pointed to Selene. "She's not just a guest. She's your boss." Travis scoffed. "You think a real CEO would dress like this? Walk in alone? No assistant? No entourage? Please." Lucia's voice was sharp now. "That's the point. She doesn't need any of that to deserve respect." The woman in the green coat raised her phone again. "I'm posting this," she said. "People need to see how they treat someone who actually owns the place." Selene finally reached for her phone. Her fingers moved calmly, deliberately. She tapped once, then said, "Camille, log every name, every timestamp, every word from this moment on. Sync it with Athena. This lobby just became a case study." On the other end, Camille's voice replied through the earpiece. "Already capturing. The system is locked. Do you want to begin escalation?" Selene didn't answer right away. Her eyes scanned the lobby. Not just the staff, but the guests who now stood witness. Chloe, Marcus, Lucia, Jerome, Maya. Faces of all colors, all ages watching. Not to see if she would win, but to see if dignity would. Travis, sensing the ground slipping beneath him, barked toward Lana. "Grab her arm. She's trespassing now." Lana, visibly flustered, hesitated, then stepped forward and reached out. The moment her hand touched Selene's forearm, the room erupted. A chorus of gasps, camera shutters, and voices calling out at once filled the air. "She touched her! Don't put your hands on her! That's assault!" Lucia rushed forward, positioning herself directly between Lana and Selene. "Do not touch her again," she said loud and clear. Travis shouted, "You're done, Torres!" Lucia didn't even blink. "Then fire me, but you're not putting your hands on her." Selene turned her head slightly, meeting Lucia's eyes. For the first time, a small, restrained smile appeared. "You just made the right kind of history," she said softly. For a long second, the entire lobby stood frozen in that moment. Lucia blocking Lana's outstretched arm, guests holding up phones like shields of truth, and Selene Carter standing tall in the center of it all, a woman framed not by flash or fame, but by stillness that dared the world to look again. Then came the voice that changed everything. "I know who she is," someone said loud and clear. All eyes turned toward the speaker, an older man in a navy pinstripe suit, standing near the far end of the concierge desk. His hair was silver at the temples, his voice deep but steady. "She's Selene Carter, founder of the Verite Group. I saw her speak at the World Hospitality Summit last year. She doesn't just own this hotel, she owns the entire chain." A hush rippled across the room, not disbelief, but dawning realization. Lana's hand dropped. Travis took a half step back, confusion flashing across his face. "That's not possible," he muttered. "No one told us." Jerome Daniels stepped forward again, now firm. "Because you weren't supposed to need a memo to treat someone with basic dignity." Selene remained still, her eyes now sweeping the room slowly. "You didn't need to know who I was to treat me with respect. That's the test. And you failed it." The weight of her words didn't come from volume. It came from the silence that followed them, heavy and crushing. Lucia turned to face the growing crowd. "Her name was in our system all morning. VIP override, owner access. Travis told us not to verify it." Maya Jennings raised her phone. "And I've got that on video." One of the guests, a woman in a red business dress, stepped forward. "I work in corporate compliance. That's retaliation and data tampering. I hope you know what kind of legal fire you've just walked into." Travis looked from face to face. suddenly aware that the crowd was no longer curious. They were witnesses, and none of them looked away. Selene turned toward the vault, her voice calm but firm. "Return my card. Now." Zach, finally unable to stay quiet, stepped forward. "I can get it," he said quietly. "No," Travis snapped, voice rising. "That's company property now. We're within protocol." "No," Selene replied. "You're within bias. You didn't follow policy. You followed assumption." From the edge of the crowd, Marcus Kwan spoke up again. "I've worked under 3 general managers here. I've seen mistakes. I've seen poor judgment. But I've never seen anyone lock up a guest property before verifying their identity, until today." Selene tapped her earpiece. "Camille, begin audit protocol. Full timestamp logging. Send footage to internal review." Camille's voice responded through the speaker, now audible to everyone. "Confirmed. Athena has been activated, cross-referencing lobby audio with Verilink log records. Selene, would you like us to prepare disciplinary protocol?" Travis turned pale. "Wait, what is this?" "Athena is our AI," Lucia said. "Installed last quarter, designed to track guest service anomalies and bias indicators." "You're being monitored by your own system," Selene added, "and right now it's watching everything." Chloe's small voice cut in again, louder now. "So, she really owns the whole hotel?" Her grandmother nodded. "Yes, baby, she owns it, and she was treated like she didn't even belong in the lobby." That landed harder than anything else. A child's voice, pure and confused, highlighting what so many grown-ups had just let happen. Selene stepped forward, not charging, not aggressive, but with a grace that made the space part for her. She stopped right at the front desk, looking Travis in the eyes. "You wanted me gone," she said. "You questioned my name, my identity, my presence. You humiliated me, loudly and publicly." Travis opened his mouth, but Selene raised a single finger, not to silence but to halt. "Do not explain. Do not apologize. You made your choices with confidence. Now face the outcome with the same." She turned toward the guests. "For anyone who is wondering, yes, I am Selene Carter. I built Verite from scratch, with no investors, no legacy wealth, and no shortcuts. I chose this property, this team, this city, because I believed it could represent what hospitality should be. And instead, this." The woman in red near the front said, "You handled it better than most of us ever could." Lucia stepped beside her. "I let it happen too long. I should have spoken sooner." Selene looked at her, then said, "You spoke when it mattered. That's leadership." The vault behind the desk beeped softly. Zach had typed in the override. The door swung open. Inside, Selene's black card lay untouched. Zach retrieved it carefully, walked over, and held it out. Selene took it, her fingers brushing his briefly. "Thank you for choosing the right side, even if it came late." He looked down, ashamed but grateful. Travis tried one last tactic. "You didn't identify yourself." Selene raised an eyebrow. "Because I shouldn't have to. That's the lesson." The entire lobby was now silent, not with tension, but with clarity. Selene Carter didn't just claim her identity, she reclaimed the space, and no one in that room would ever forget how it happened. As the lobby settled into a heavy silence, a new energy took hold. Not loud, not chaotic, but unmistakably shifting. Selene Carter had not shouted. She had not demanded. But with a few words and deliberate calm, she had tilted the entire room on its axis. And now she moved with precision. Selene stepped slightly aside, facing Lucia and Jerome. "From this point forward," she said, her voice even, "we move within systems, not emotions." Lucia nodded. "Understood." Selene tapped once more on her phone, then placed it flat on the counter again. A soft chime echoed in her earpiece. Camille's voice returned, now clear and businesslike. "Athena protocol confirmed active. Recording sequence synced with internal logs. 4 flag behavior patterns identified. Do you want live witness relay?" Selene replied, "No live relay, just archive everything, no gaps." The front desk team, Lana, Travis, Zach, looked increasingly uneasy. The shift wasn't loud, but it was absolute. Something invisible had started moving beneath their feet, and it was taking shape quickly. Behind them, a low beep sounded from the concierge monitor. Lucia glanced at the screen. "It just pulled footage," she said, glancing up at Selene. "Lobby cam, 40 minutes back." Selene nodded. "Let it load." While guests watched in breathless quiet, the screen came to life. It replayed the very moment Travis took Selene's card, inspected it, then said, "Let's see how far she'll bluff." Gasps rippled through the room. Maya Jennings whispered, "He said that out loud? On camera?" The woman in the red dress stepped closer. "They're done." Then came another sound, a chime from the guest services terminal. Lucia looked again. "Camille just uploaded internal guest complaints, cross-flagged to staff IDs." Selene didn't flinch. "Filter by Travis Cole." Lucia tapped. The screen showed a cascading list. At least 9 entries. 5 of them were unresolved. 3 had been manually closed by staff override. Chloe, still holding her tablet, tilted her head. "That's a lot," guests murmured. One man in a tailored suit near the coffee bar muttered, "You don't get 9 unresolved guest issues without covering something up." Zach took a small step back. Lana rubbed her wrist anxiously. Travis stared at the screen like it had betrayed him. Then Selene's voice came again, low, precise. "Camille, please initiate cross-check against staff behavior logs." Camille replied through the earpiece, "Running now. Matching incident phrasing. Pattern of guest does not appear to match reservation profile. Appears in 4 different complaints, all involving solo travelers of color." The room pulsed with silence again, but this time it wasn't awkward. It was accountability waiting to ignite. Selene looked up. "I want those patterns stored, time-stamped, and included in today's escalation." "Already compiled," Camille said. And then, just as Travis tried to recover, the lobby was struck with something no one expected. Lucia turned, suddenly remembering something. "There's more," she said. She walked briskly to a tray of guest refreshments at the sideboard and returned with a small brown paper bag. On the label was a handwritten note. Lucia held it up. "This was placed in the service area 15 minutes ago. It was labeled, 'Not for Lobby Chair 3'. Selene blinked, then slowly turned her head toward the nearest guest seating area. Chair number 3, the chair where she had been waiting earlier. Maya's mouth fell open. "Wait, someone actually wrote that?" Lucia peeled back the label. Inside the bag was a boxed lunch, but the sandwich inside was crushed, discolored, and visibly old. A second bag labeled for another guest was sitting next to it. "Fresh sandwich, clean wrap." "I saw staff bring these out," Lucia said, "but I didn't check the tags." Jerome turned to Travis. "Is that your team's idea of hospitality?" Travis stammered. That wasn't meant for her." "But it was," Selene said calmly. "And whether or not it was meant as a joke or punishment, it reflects intent." Lana spoke up suddenly, her voice brittle. "I didn't write it, I swear." "No one said you did," Selene replied, "but you didn't stop it either." The older man in the navy pinstripe stepped closer. "This is systemic. This isn't just a bad day." Selene turned toward the vault. "Lucia, take inventory of everything removed from my access. Cross-log timestamps with Athena. Document the full chain." Lucia got to work without hesitation. Selene turned back to the lobby. "Anyone who wants to leave," she said, scanning the room, "may. But what happens next is not just about me." Chloe, wide-eyed, looked up at her grandmother. "What's she gonna do?" Her grandmother whispered. "She's about to change everything." For a moment, there was only the sound of Lucia's fingers tapping swiftly across the concierge terminal, her face focused, her movements steady. Then the soft chime of confirmation echoed through the lobby, the first of many. "Full access history retrieved," Lucia said aloud. "Selene Carter's override credentials were recorded at 6:51 this morning. System auto-verified at 7:03, suppressed at 7:42 by staff ID, Travis Cole." The screen displayed the entry in bold text, time-stamped and traced. Gasps again. Murmurs followed. Selene turned to Travis. "So you didn't just question me, you erased me." Travis stepped back. "That's not what happened. There was a system glitch. I was trying to..." Trying to what? Jerome cut in. To protect the brand image from someone who didn't look like your idea of a penthouse guest? Travis's jaw tensed. He scanned the room, looking for someone to back him up. But even Lana stood frozen now, arms crossed tightly, eyes downcast. Lucia continued reading. There are 4 override suppression instances tied to your ID in the last 90 days. 3 involve female guests. 2 specifically mentioned profile mismatch in the staff notes. Selene didn't blink. Camille, prepare temporary account lockdown for Travis Cole. Staff terminal access suspension, pending disciplinary review. Camille's voice answered, neutral and immediate. Logged, executing. Behind the front desk, a red light flashed on Travis's touchscreen. His account locked out, his access code disabled. He stared at it like he couldn't believe it. You can't do that. Selene looked at him steadily. I just did. Then came the moment that cracked the remaining shell of silence. The older woman in the floral scarf, Chloe's grandmother, stood up slowly and stepped forward. She was calm, dignified, but her voice was firm. I've been coming to this hotel for over 20 years, she said, and I've never seen anyone treated like this. Not this publicly, not this deliberately. She turned toward Selene. I didn't know who you were, but I saw what they did, and it wasn't policy, it was cruelty. Selene nodded once. Thank you. Across the lobby, a young man stepped out of line holding his phone. Do you want this footage sent to legal? I caught everything from the moment she checked in. A chorus of similar offers followed. I've got the audio of the vault lock. I recorded the part where Lana called security without cause. I filmed the sandwich. Selene raised a hand, not to stop them, but to steady the moment. I appreciate all of it. Please send it to witnessveritegroup.com. Our team will respond within 24 hours. Lucia added, we're logging everything. Nothing's being erased. Travis, now red-faced, hissed toward Lana. Say something. But Lana didn't defend him. Her voice was quiet, almost afraid. I just followed what you told us to do. You always said image mattered more than procedure. Selene's head tilted slightly. That sounds like an admission. Lana opened her mouth, then shut it. Her silence said more than any denial could. Then the room shifted again. Camille's voice returned, this time a touch more urgent. Selene, we just received an internal alert. Regional media outlets have picked up the incident from public posts. The hashtag #VerityTruth is trending. We're monitoring. Selene nodded slowly. Let it trend. Let the truth breathe. At that moment, the front doors of the Auralis Hotel swung open again. A man in a gray suit entered briskly, one of the district operations liaisons for Verite. He walked directly towards Selene and spoke just loudly enough for the lobby to hear. Ms. Carter, we've been instructed to grant you full executive control on site. Regional has greenlit immediate on-location protocol restructuring. Selene gave a single nod. Begin transition. Staff reassignment begins now. Freeze existing shift rotations until full review. And retrieve all suppressed complaints from the last 6 months. Yes, ma'am. The liaison turned to Lucia. You've been listed as interim guest services lead, pending formal promotion. Congratulations. Lucia blinked. I didn't know. You earned it, Selene said simply. Travis looked stunned. Lana leaned against the counter, visibly shaken. Zach had already stepped away and stood silently by the elevator, watching history unfold with wide, silent eyes. Selene walked to the center of the lobby and turned to face the guests. To every guest here today, you witnessed something uncomfortable, but necessary. Change never arrives quietly. It arrives through confrontation and correction, and what happened here today will never happen again. She paused. Not in this lobby, not in this brand. A beat of silence. Then someone clapped. Then another. And then the entire lobby was filled with the sound of purposeful applause, not for spectacle, but for justice, for clarity, for the sound of something breaking and beginning again. By the time the applause in the lobby died down, the world outside was already listening. Camille's voice returned to Selene's earpiece, brisk but steady. Multiple media outlets now covering the incident. Local stations, 2 national blogs, and 3 hospitality trade platforms, all referencing the footage tagged #VerityTruth. Selene didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She only said, "Monitor all coverage. Don't intervene. Let the truth speak without filters." Lucia stepped forward from the concierge desk. Guest inboxes are starting to flood. Emails, voice messages, DMs, some from former guests, a few from former staff. Selene raised her brow. "Former staff?" Lucia nodded. "At least two say they left after similar experiences under Travis. One of them mentioned being told to flag guests who didn't fit the expected profile." Maya, still holding her phone, turned to the group gathered around her. "I posted a 2-minute clip of what happened with the sandwich bag and the vault. It already has 23,000 views." A guest in a leather coat added, "Reddit's blowing up. Someone uploaded a full 10-minute compilation already. The comment section's wild." Across the lobby, Zach rubbed the back of his neck, visibly shaken. He whispered to no one in particular, "It wasn't supposed to go like this." Selene heard him. She didn't turn to face him, but she spoke clearly enough. "That's the thing about silence. It always feels safe until someone finally listens." At that moment, the operations liaison, who had quietly positioned himself by the back desk, received a call and turned towards Selene. "Update from the regional board. Effective immediately, the Auralis Hotel will undergo an internal compliance audit. They're freezing promotional campaigns and third-party partnerships pending review." Selene didn't react. She expected it. "Good. That's the bare minimum." Then she stepped toward the center of the lobby once more. "I want every employee trained from the ground up." "Not a refresher, a reset?" Lucia asked. "All departments?" "All," Selene confirmed. "Guest services, housekeeping, security, concierge, management, everyone. We'll bring in external evaluators, and every complaint ignored in the last 18 months will be reopened." Camille's voice added through the earpiece. "Noted. Legal confirms they'll handle data protection and identity confidentiality where required." Maya asked, "Are you going to issue a statement to the press?" Selene paused, then replied, "Eventually, but today's not about spin, it's about substance." At that exact moment, a soft chime came from Camille again. "Selene, we have something else. An anonymous tip just came in. Internal documents. Unofficial staff instructions tied to Travis's tenure. Shared from a personal folder linked to former regional director Martin Hale." Selene stiffened. "Martin retired 3 months ago." "Yes," Camille confirmed, "but he left behind a pattern. These files show internal notes referring to visual profile management, a coded phrase used repeatedly. There's even reference to Selene herself in a suppressed memo from last year." Lucia looked stunned. "They flagged you in your own company?" Selene's voice dropped. "They didn't know it was me. They just saw a black woman with no title attached, checking in alone. That's all it took." Jerome stepped beside her. "Do you want me to speak to the press on your behalf?" Selene shook her head. "No, this is my story. I'll speak when I'm ready. But when I do, it won't be just about me." Zach took a hesitant step forward. "Ms. Carter, I didn't know. I mean, I saw your name once, but I didn't connect it. Travis said we shouldn't override protocols unless approved." Selene turned slowly toward him. "I believe you, but belief doesn't erase consequence." Zach nodded, ashamed. "I understand." Selene looked at him for a long moment. "Then help fix it. Not for me. For the guests who won't have a voice next time." "I will," Zach said quietly. Then from the rear of the lobby, a woman in a navy coat and glasses stepped forward. She had been silent until now. Her voice was soft but clear. "My name is Clarice Chen," she said. "I stayed here last year. I filed a complaint about being followed by security from the elevator to my room. I never got a response. I assumed I'd imagined it, or that it wasn't serious enough." Selene turned to her. "You didn't imagine it, and it was serious. We're going to find your file, and this time, you'll be heard." Clarice's eyes welled up. "Thank you." At that moment, the power of what had just begun started to truly settle into the air. The crowd in the lobby wasn't just bearing witness anymore. They were standing in the middle of a reckoning. Selene looked across the room. "This lobby," she said, "was once designed to impress. Now it's going to mean something." The tension that had once clung to the marble and brass surfaces of the Auralis Hotel was gone. In its place, A quiet stillness held the lobby, but it was not silence born of fear or shock. It was the hush that comes when people are waiting, truly waiting, to hear something that matters. Selene Carter stood at the center of the space, surrounded by staff, guests, and strangers who had now become something closer to a community. Every phone was lowered. Every voice was quiet. No one was rushing for the elevator or the door. It was as if the entire hotel had been paused. She looked around the room, meeting eyes one by one. Not just the confident ones, not just the supportive ones, but the uncertain, the embarrassed, the hesitant. The people who had almost said something, but didn't. The ones who had watched and wished they hadn't. "I want to tell you a story," Selene began. Her voice was not loud, but it was undeniable. It filled the lobby without shouting. 27 years ago, I walked into a hotel that looked a lot like this one. It was my first solo trip. I had a printed confirmation in my hand, in a suitcase that rattled because the wheel was broken. I had saved for months. I was proud, nervous, excited. She paused. A few guests shifted, listening more closely now. The man at the desk barely looked at me. He said the system was down. Then he told me to wait. I waited 3 hours. Then he said my card was declined. Though I knew it wasn't, I offered cash. He said they were sold out. Selene's eyes drifted toward the lobby ceiling, then returned to the crowd. I slept on a bench outside that night, because I didn't look like someone who belonged in that hotel. No one moved. A woman near the water station quietly covered her mouth. That night changed me, not because it broke me, but because it taught me something very real. Perception walks ahead of truth. People see what they expect to see, and for some of us, that means being questioned before we're acknowledged, judged before we're spoken to. She paused again, letting the weight settle. That's why I started Verite. Not just to build something elegant, but to build something honest. Something that would never again require someone to prove their worth at the front desk. And yet, today, it happened again. In my own hotel, with my own name in the system. She let that sit. I don't tell you this to shame anyone. I tell it because silence is what makes this cycle permanent. And I refuse to be silent anymore. From the back of the room, a voice called out gently, "Neither do we." Selene turned to see Clarice Chen, the guest who had previously spoken about her ignored complaint. This time she stood taller. Maya stepped beside her, phone still in hand but lowered. People are watching, not just online, in here, in every room like this. Selene nodded. And that's why I want to say this clearly. What happened today is not just an error. It is a pattern, a design flaw that has gone unaddressed too long. So I'm going to fix it. But not just here, not just at the Auralis, across every single property we own. A ripple moved through the crowd. A concierge gasped audibly. Selene continued. We will create an accountability structure that doesn't hide behind customer service scripts. We will implement a bias response framework, real protocols, not theoretical training, and we will open our doors to third-party auditors who will speak to the people we often ignore, our guests, our staff, our former employees. She turned to Lucia. You will help lead that team, because you stepped up when it counted. Lucia blinked, overwhelmed, but nodded. A woman near the fireplace whispered, "This is what real leadership looks like." Selene lifted her head. There are two kinds of power in the world, she said, the kind that protects its own comfort and the kind that risks everything to create fairness for others. She let the words land. I choose the second. Then with a clarity that echoed louder than any speech, she said, this is no longer just my hotel. This is a promise that if you walk through these doors, no matter what you wear, no matter what you look like, no matter what your name sounds like, you will be treated with dignity. Every time. Someone in the crowd began to clap, then another, and another. It grew, not thunderous, not explosive, but steady, purposeful, the sound of people saying, we see this, we believe this. Selene didn't bow, she didn't gesture. She simply stood in that moment, rooted and unshaken, as the promise she had made began to carry weight beyond her own voice. It had begun. And no one in that lobby would forget the sound of the day dignity spoke. And everyone listened. 3 months later, the lobby of the Auralis Hotel bore little resemblance to the scene that had gone viral across the country. The marble floors still gleamed under soft gold lighting. The chandelier still hung, casting its dignified glow. But the atmosphere had changed in ways no designer could fabricate. What once carried the weight of quiet judgment now hummed with genuine welcome. Near the main entrance where the confrontation had begun, now stood a framed portrait of Selene Carter. Not dramatic, not ostentatious, just a photograph of her standing calmly in the same lobby, wearing the same black blouse and dark jeans. Beneath the frame was a plaque etched with a single sentence: "This space belongs to every guest, no exceptions." The staff had changed too. New hires had undergone a completely restructured onboarding process. Old staff, like Zach and even Lana, had been invited, under strict terms, to complete a full accountability and equity retraining program. Some chose to leave, others chose to grow. Lucia Torres, once the quiet concierge, now wore a navy blazer and carried a title stitched in white across her badge: Guest Services Director. She didn't boast. She didn't need to, because what mattered more than the title was the respect she now received from every corner of the hotel, from colleagues, from guests, and from herself. Selene had kept her promise. The internal audit she ordered had uncovered dozens of unresolved complaints across multiple properties. In response, she established an independent oversight board made up of external experts, rotating guest advocates, and frontline staff voices. It wasn't performative. It wasn't temporary. It was the new foundation of Verite Group. From Seattle to Houston, from New York to Chicago, hotel after hotel began adopting what came to be known as the Auralis Protocol, a guest experience framework rooted in anti-bias training, visible accountability tools, and open feedback platforms. Selene refused to let the moment end in applause. She built something permanent, and people noticed. 1 week before the 3-month anniversary, Selene received a letter from a former hospitality manager in Denver. The letter was handwritten. It began with, "I saw what you did, and I need to tell you something." The man confessed that during his tenure under a now-retired regional executive, there had been an unspoken directive to prioritize the brand's visual identity when dealing with premium guests. It was never put in writing, but everyone knew what it meant. If a guest didn't look the part, especially if they were alone or a person of color, they were to be delayed, redirected, or flagged. It wasn't just a few bad actors, it was a system. Selene didn't respond in anger. She passed the letter to the oversight board and used it to launch the Truth Threads initiative, a protected channel for former employees to anonymously report buried misconduct without fear of retaliation. Within weeks, more testimonies followed. Some were horrifying, some were hopeful, all were heard. And through it all, Selene remained visible but grounded, not seeking fame, but refusing to disappear. She gave keynote addresses not on luxury design, but on ethical leadership. She met with law students and civil rights advocates, not at press conferences, but in quiet roundtables in hotel conference rooms. And when asked what she wanted her legacy to be, she said this: "I don't want a statue, I want a structure, not something made of stone, but something made of policy, transparency, and will." At the next Verite Leadership Summit, Selene stood on stage in front of more than 2,000 managers, franchise operators, and team members. She didn't begin with statistics. She began with a story. She told them about Chloe, the little girl in the lobby who dared to speak when most adults didn't. She told them about Lucia, who risked her job to tell the truth. And she told them about Clarice, the guest who had once filed a complaint into silence, but finally saw justice catch up. "This isn't about redemption," Selene said that day. "It's about rebuilding. It's about what happens when we stop protecting comfort and start protecting people." The crowd rose to their feet, not out of obligation, but because something had shifted in all of them. In that moment, they weren't just hotel staff. They were custodians of a new standard. And Selene Carter, once questioned for her very presence in her own lobby, now stood at the helm of a movement that had made it clear: respect doesn't require recognition. Dignity is not something you earn by appearance. It is something every guest carries in with them. And now at the Auralis Hotel and across a Verity Group, that truth is finally what opens every door.